Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Shrewd Dudes podcast. This week, we got a whole bunch of things to cover. We got to cover what's going on. What in the world is going on in Israel? Things are getting a little spicy over there. Apparently, a hospital got hit, and it's a game of pointing fingers as to who's the cause. Protesters in Lebanon are basically like taking down for U.S. Embassies, and a lot of people are worried about Mr. Biden going to Israel. Is it a dumb move? We think so. And are we on the brink of World War III? We're gonna have to go over some of those stories. Also, in U.S. stories, we're gonna talk about Jim Jordan, who is a very good choice for a House Speaker. Is facing a lot of pushback. So we're going to see what in the world is going on in that House race. Mr. RFK may be backfiring on the on conservatives, and apparently prostitutes can now wear G-strings anywhere they want in California, thanks to a new law. So we're going to cover all of these things and so much more on this week's episode of Tuesday Newsday and the Shrewd Dudes podcast.
There we go. All right. We are back for another episode of Tuesday Newsday.
You almost started the countdown all over again.
I know. I accidentally hit the wrong button. They're right next to each other. It was like, boop. And I'm like, wait, no, not that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Although I might have to try and find maybe a different audio track for the countdown.
Why?
Well, because YouTube, whenever I post it with the audio, with the countdown, YouTube flags it for censorship, and so it reduces the kind of reach.
For censorship? Is it like a copyrighted song?
Yep.
Oh. I mean, you might as well
It's easy enough. It's easy enough to swap it over.
To fix, yeah.
Yeah. So I might get that done maybe during this week sometime. But
okay, sounds good.
So, of course, if you are watching this currently, we are live on Twitch and Twitter. And you can comment typically on Twitch. Dang it, Twitch. We don't respond to any messages on Twitter because it doesn't show up.
Oh, really?
So, no, it does. It'll show up on Twitter, but it will not show up on the stream.
Gotcha.
And the only way we can respond to it is by basically sending, by recommenting, and the comment doesn't show up.
So it becomes two different comment sections.
Mm-hmm.
Makes
sense. We're trying to keep it focused, and Twitch is the easiest way to do that for now. Of course, we want to move into other platforms in the future, and I know that I am defocusing, so I'll fix that.
So how you doing, man? How's your finger doing?
Yes, so
everyone wants to know.
Everyone. So it's in a Band-Aid.
The Gimp Man.
My thumb is still kind of pretty blackened, so it's not nearly as painful as it was on Tuesday. Last
black
week
and
was
blue over here.
I was in a lot of pain on Tuesday.
Yes,
but I'm doing fine now.
I knew well.
So, and they're basically just like trying to find odd jobs for me to do, and I'm like, guys, it's a finger. Not the end of the world.
You're basically useless to us. You're
well, that's
the
way some people were like, oh, like, can you do that? And I'm like,
you poor dear.
Like, it's taking out garbage and throwing it out. Why would I not? And they're like, as long as you're okay. And I'm like, yes.
You're getting the pity treatment.
Yeah. And so
yes, you are.
I've been trying to incorporate myself into other tasks, and they're like,
yeah,
are you sure you should be doing that? And I'm like, be quiet.
You could almost make a skit out of that. Be like, you're trying to dig something. Like, are you sure you can handle that? It's like, yes. Mm-hmm. It's like, you go sit down to read a newspaper. Like, are you sure you can do that? It's like, yes.
Yes.
It's like you try to peel a banana. I'm like, would you like me to do that for you? Like, no, I got this.
Some people are doing it seriously, and then other people are just like, Steven, are you sure you're allowed to ride the bus? And I'm like, I don't know, honestly, anymore. I don't know.
It might be tough. It might be tough.
Riding the bus is for losers.
It really is.
I know.
That's why. That's why I never ride the bus.
I really hate riding home on the bus because it's exactly when high schools get out, and I'm just like, I hate you all so much. You're all super annoying.
And it's super rowdy and loud and all that.
Oh, like the bus has standing room only.
Yep.
And
my buddy actually asked me like to meet him at this restaurant downtown. He's like, "Oh yeah, it'll be super. Just get on the C train." And I'm like, I go over there and I drive to like the close to the restaurant, and I'm like, it's after 6. So I'm like, it's free parking. I'm like, he's like, why don't you take the bus or the C train? I'm like, because it's way easier to take the car. It's free parking, and I'm already saving myself $7 on the there and back on the C train. I'm like, yeah, C train's not as convenient as you think it is.
Yep.
I'm like, not.
Yeah. So
and then I don't know what kind of like nut job I'm gonna go with.
Oh yeah, you never know. Oh, like I had to be kind of. I remember we went on the C train the last time to go to my brother's like legal like bar call.
Yep.
For when he became a lawyer. And we're going to the bar call and we show up there. And on the way, like the train on the way there, there's a guy that hops on and Curtis leans over me. He's like, Daddy, why does that man smell like pee? And I'm like, I'll tell you later. Because he did.
Not in front of the kid. Not in front of the crazy man.
Not in front of the crazy man who smells like pee and looks like he's just woke up from basically not having showered in 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah, so definitely don't want to ride the C train to the bus near downtown.
Not particularly, no.
But anyways,
I mean, it's starting to resemble Vancouver. Honestly, Vancouver was bad.
Yeah. Oh, like crime in Calgary has just skyrocketed. It's so scary.
Yeah, it's gotten really bad.
All right, quick.
Don't you worry though, because the mayor of Calgary rides the C train with a security detail of about 20 people and photo ops and all that, and then she never does it again.
And then she never rides. Yep.
Again. Yeah, exactly.
The C train is so safe. That man looks sketchy. Put him in the next car.
Yeah. Are we the baddies? It's like, yes, you are. All right, proceed, Stephen.
Yes, let us go into the stories of the day.
Take it.
So, starting off with some fairly good news. So, this was announced yesterday. Daily Wire launches kids' entertainment app called Bentkey.
Cool stuff.
So, conservative media brand notes for a popular podcast, The Ben Shapiro Show, and others, which we enjoy. Has a new subscription streaming app exclusively for kids' entertainment content called Bentkey. The new platform, launching on the 100th anniversary of the founding of Disney, was built in response to Disney's positioning on Florida's Parental Rights and Education Bill, also known as the Don't Say Gay Bill. Daily Wire told Axios last year that it planned to invest a minimum of $100 million in the new app over the next 3 years. It'll be available for $99 per year, beginning Monday in the United States and Wednesday globally, a Daily Wire executive told Axios. So, subscribers to Daily Wire's general entertainment service will automatically get access to Bentkey. So, woo! I get access to Bentkey.
And it's going to be good for your kids.
I know. So, programs that appear on the service include Chipchilla, an animated original series about his family of homeschooled chinchillas.
That actually looks really good.
Kid Fit Go, Jasmine and Jambo, and more. And then they're also, of course, having some new movies that they're coming out with, which includes Snow White, and then they're having a new TV series. Steph says she's very excited for Snow White. And then they're having a new live-action TV series called The Pendragon Cycle.
Yeah, that actually looks...
It does look pretty cool.
I will say, though, like you and I were talking before, we're a little torn as to whether or not it was a good idea to cast like Brett Cooper.
Yeah.
We love Brett Cooper. She's awesome. She's one of the best new additions to the Daily Wire. But it's a little bit
kind of like shoehorning her in.
Yeah, because she is typecast. Like everybody knows who she is at Daily Wire. So putting her in the Daily Wire movie is like,
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't best choice. If she had been in a movie outside of Daily Wire umbrella, some kind of indie movie or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, no worries, that'd be awesome. So let us know if you think that makes sense or not. Gina Carano.
Gina Carano.
Oh my
Gina
God.
Carano for Snow White would be hilarious.
She's way too old.
So he's
though.
way too well. She's too old, and she'd be like, "I'm Snow White."
Like, come at me, evil witch. You know, she's like
Yeah.
like body slammed the evil
Just like
witch.
throws the apple, just knocks the witch unconscious.
Oh
Be
yeah.
like the
yeah.
end.
So,
it would actually be funny
yeah.
if Daily Wire made like a little like 2-minute skit about that. Be like,
Yeah.
this is why we had to cast Brett Cooper because Gina Carano would just be.
that would be something that like Freedom Tunes would do excellently. They would do
Yes,
such
it
a
would
good
be
job
so
of that one,
funny.
right? That would be a great like Freedom Tunes like a cartoon.
Yeah, be like,
We should talk
why
to
the other Daily
Jameis.
Yeah, the other having like a segment be like why the other Daily Wire hosts wouldn't work. And be having Gina Carano and then having like Candace Owens, and she'd be like going up to the witch.
Like,
so where's your 990 tax filing?
It's like you know, feel like the evil witch goes out to bed. Shapiro's like, I refuse to shut that gang. You know, like I don't know what this like apple came, and like how do I even know like your real identity is? Like come on, gang.
Mm-hmm.
You expect me to be dumb?
Yeah, you're the government, and my what is it? My ExpressVPN has kept me from explaining my private data to you.
If you want to avoid getting fooled by online like scammers, like make sure you get VPN.
Yeah. You want to avoid evil witches spying on your property.
The evil witch would be like, would you like an apple? It's like, what is an apple?
Yeah. That'd be good. That'd be very interesting. Very, very.
I'd watch that.
Oh yes, totally.
All right. Totally. So speaking of entertaining, let's talk about something that happened this week in Soccer Town. I gotta know where it was, but it's pretty funny actually.
Okay, yeah, I'm just switching over those two. That's fine.
Yeah, that's right. Start with the funny one.
Yeah, start with the funny one. This is I will admit watching this. So let's watch
go through the story. Go through the story first before you actually
the story.
Get a friend or through what the ramp up.
Okay, so some guys really can't help it. They just want to be cut out there on the pitch, kicking it like the good old days when they used to have a leg. So when the ball bounces out of play, you love to see plays like this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yep.
And he falls over.
And his buddy dies laughing.
Is killing himself. He is just killing himself laughing.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And that would, I would react probably fairly similarly to that.
Me too. And I love how the guy, if you look at the screenshot down below, you can see that his friend, he's having a good time too. Like he's like, yeah, I deserve that one. Like look below. Right there. Even the guy who kicked it's like, yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah, you're right. That's right. That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that would be.
I'm sure he felt. Yeah.
Especially caught on live television. Be like, no, we're recording this, and it's being played at every single time you go somewhere.
What game would that be? Who's playing that? I'm kind of curious now. He played again because he had the team jerseys.
Oh no, it's view replies. I don't need to view replies.
Soccer A&M. I'm not sure who that would be.
Okay, I think I know. So this is my limited knowledge.
So you like the
I know who has the white and red colors.
McGoldrick?
No, they have a different sponsor. They have similar colors.
Not sure. Like it's from the back. But anyways, basically
like similar colors.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is Sunderland.
That's awesome.
Because Sunderland was my team of choice, which everybody laughed at me. They're like, "You idiot! Why would you choose Sunderland?"
And then they kind of won it in the end.
No, they didn't. No? Sunderland is bad.
Oh, they're like the bottom.
In the UK, team. Brief kind of those who don't understand the UK soccer. Okay. The UK soccer has 3 tiers. There's the top tier, which is the Premier League, which is like Manchester United, Manchester City. Sunderland used to play in that.
And they kind of dropped
out. And
then
they got dead last in that league. And then when you get dead last in that league, then you swap places with the top team in the second tier league.
Oh.
And then they got dead last in the tier 2 league. It went to the tier 3 league. And I'm like, oh, you guys suck.
That's unfortunate.
Yep. But like they used to be amazing. Like Sunderland used to win like I think it's called the UEFA like Champions League, which is like the best teams in the world, and they used to win it.
Dang.
And now they're like, ugh, you guys are really bad.
Dang, man.
So that was one thing which we thought was funny. This is not funny. It's just really sad.
It's like at this point, like women, like what's the point?
Yeah. At this point, women, it's just like stop competing. Like seriously, just stop competing.
It's over. Women's sports is like a remnant of a bygone era.
Yep. So the 2023 Women's Fencing World Champ pulverized their competition because, well, you know. Yeah, you know.
We all know. Yes, we all know.
So Liz Kokab, trans person, easily beat 14-time world champion Marie Elisa Somaroha in the FIE Veteran Fencing World Championships in the 70-plus category. So this is exactly why that they won.
You got a crazy reach.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, how do you lose? If you can reach and like they're basically lunging and they can't touch your feet, and you can touch the center of their back.
There's a guy in Monday Night Hockey that we play with. He's like 6'5".
Oh, is that back on now?
Huh? Yeah, it's back on.
Oh, okay. Let me know.
You should come. I'll let you know. But he's got like a ridiculous, like he's got like super long arms, super tall. He's impossible to guard, and he's impossible to go against because he's got way too long of a reach.
Oh yeah,
I'm like he's brutal, right? Like he's super tall, but you add on top of the monster like frame, you also add on top of that the natural skill and all the talents that all the basic biological benefits that you have. It's pretty much it's a done deal. Yeah. So once again, even the old ladies again. It's sad. It's a sad day for. By the way, this was not just any like competitor. This was like a 14-time world champion,
14-time women's world champion,
totally owned.
Yep, no chance.
I should tell you something. No chance. Whatever. It's bad. So,
anyways, it's very unfortunate.
Just thought you guys should know that the old ladies are getting absolutely pummeled. And speaking of getting pummeled, let's talk about what's happening in Gaza. Stephen.
So according to the New York Post, hundreds killed in Gaza hospital blast as Israel blames failed Hamas rocket. So more than 500 people were killed in a massive blast at a Gaza City hospital Tuesday, Hamas-run health ministry said, blaming an Israeli airstrike, as the IDF insists the bloodshed was caused by a failed Hamas rocket. The strike on Al-Ahi Arab Hospital marks the deadliest single incident since the war broke out, and comes just hours before President Biden was expected to visit Israel in a show of support. Hamas called the blast a horrific massacre, saying it was caused by an Israeli strike. Gaza authorities said 500 were killed, adding to that the blast mostly killed displaced people. Israeli officials, however, refute the report from Hamas, claiming the hospital was not hit by an IDF airstrike, but was instead the victim of a faulty rocket launched by the terror group. So, IDF says an enemy rocket barrage was carried out towards Israel, which passed in the vicinity of the hospital when it was hit. According to intelligence information and several sources we have, the GAP organization is responsible for the failed shooting that hit the hospital. So as the government blamed one another for the bloodiest day since the war broke out on October 7th, harrowing images from the hospital show many women and children wounded by the strike. So
the thing is, this is like both I hate to say it, one of them sounds more plausible than the other. Like, is it possible that Israel actually hit a is it possible that they hit a hospital? Possible because like maybe their airstrike was off. Although I know that they are super, super big on avoiding like targets like that. So it seems less likely to me that Israel would have hit a target like that. Is it possible that Hamas screwed up and hit their own hospital? I think that's entirely possible because they're using far more rudimentary things. And obviously Hamas is not exactly how do you put it? They're it is not below them to target a hospital in order to basically try to make Israel look bad. These are the kind of people that throw their kids in the line of fire, hoping that they get hit so that they can use that against Israel. So I don't know. What do you think, Stephen? Do you think that?
Well, actually, it was
I'd say
interesting.
more.
I will go back because it was actually the previous story. So, this is from Not the Bee, just going back to the previous one. Israel says explosion in Gaza hospital was a result of failed Hamas rockets. Releases purported video of incident. Hamas reports on Telegram seem to confirm.
Okay, interesting.
So this is apparently the failed launch. Not great video. Okay.
Okay. So basically, like something about the location must have confirmed like where it came from and where it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just, to me, if you take all of the information that we have together, remember how like remember in the Ukrainian.
Okay, well, this is sort of interesting. So,
Okay, what's up?
From Jordan Schachtel, 1 minute before the rocket blew up a hospital, Hamas announced on Telegram they were launching the most robust weapons in the arsenal at Haifa. None of the rockets reached Haifa. High probability these hit the hospital and set off secondary explosions within building. Because, as we know, Hamas uses hospitals as their bases. So it probably launched it, missed, and then the hospital exploded because they had an arsenal and cache of weapons there. That's probably my best guess.
That sounds very plausible.
And there's also, it says videos are surfacing of sustained rocket fire coming out of Gaza at the same time the hospital blew up. And as I said, Hamas stores ammunition depots in civilian areas, especially schools and hospital. So,
dang.
I would say it would be fairly likely that this would be a result of Hamas.
I'm almost like, thinking like it would be like almost like 90 to 95% likely that Hamas kind of hit their own hospital. Sounds like it was accidental, but still, like they're gonna bank on it. Remember, Stephen? Do you remember like back when there was like that whole story about how a Russian rocket hit Poland, or like hit a target like inside Poland, and people were saying like, "Oh my goodness, it's on!" Like there's gonna be like like World War III, like with NATO like joining the war, and then it turned out that it was not a Russian rocket, but it was actually a Ukrainian rocket. And that Zelensky knew full well that it was not a Russian rocket, but he tried to use it as a way of dragging the NATO into into the war. So, if Zelensky and Ukraine are willing to do something like that in order to, for their own benefit, I mean, I would not be shocked if Hamas, of all the terror organizations, is going to basically try to play the same game. And of course, like the media is complicit in all their efforts, so of course they're more than happy to kind of make that go right. So,
yep.
I tell you something.
So
I don't
know. We will continue.
Let's go.
So the next one. So thousands of protesters surround the United States Embassy in Lebanon with demonstrators hanging Palestinian flags. Thousands of Lebanese protesters, some waving Palestinian flags, gathered late into Tuesday night outside the U.S. Embassy. It came just hours after the blast. This is Hamas claim. The Hamas claims killed at least 500 people. It doesn't surprise me. That's what happens when you hit Hamas weapons stockpile. And Iran-backed Hezbollah, which fought a war with Israel in 2006, called for a day of protest in Beirut on Tuesday in response to the attack. Thousands of Lebanese protesters, some waving Palestinian flags, gathered late into the night. Some show the protesters scaling a barbed wire topped fence to replace the United States flag with a Palestinian version. Fire was also set near the complex. Later footage showed gas being sprayed at the protesters to push them back. Doesn't surprise me too much.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about that whole what's going on in the because this is not just the Lebanon embassy.
Well,
there's happening across.
Hezbollah is, of course, they're the same kind of evil, malicious wickedness as Hamas. They're just better funded and they're better prepared. And as much as Israel has the capacity and the capability of fighting both a war with Hamas and a war with Hezbollah, it's better for Israel if they focus on one. That was some suggestion as to why Israel hasn't completely just like wiped Hamas or the Gaza Strip off the face of the earth yet, because they're kind of trying to delay and trying to kind of stir up all the support and the troops that they have so they don't pull them away from the northern border, because of course Hezbollah could attack from the north in Lebanon. So, yes.
It sounds bad, like, because it's the big fear is like, and this is a big fear, is how many other countries, how many other foreign agents are going to basically jump into the mix. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about the World War III fears. But we may actually be seeing at least the formation of similar style, a similar setup as we saw in World War One. So if you guys know World War One, you had all of these major powers who were backing smaller nations, and they basically would go to war if the smaller nation gets dragged into the mix. And so you had Germany backing, like, I think it was Austria. You had England backing, like another small faction. You had like Russia backing, it's just everybody had their players, and it was the small scale players that dragged the big boys into the war. Right now, if Syria goes to war, it's likely that that Russia would join. If Iran goes to war, it's likely that China would go to war backing them. And if Israel goes to war on a big scale, then you better believe not United States would kind of back them as well. So we have the ingredients. We just don't know if that's how it's going to play out.
Yeah, if it's going to come together in the specific way to kind of have it play out this time.
It's got the potential, so that's why people are actually really concerned.
Yeah, and like as I was saying, sort of kind of repeating. So from Summit News, Israel media says Gaza operation delayed on fears of Hezbollah full assault in north. Hamas issues hostage video. So short video shows a young woman, 21-year-old Maya Shem, being treated after she was wounded in her arm and later speaking to the camera. She was kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th while taking part of the Desert Rave, where the gunmen also massacred over 260 festival goers. So this is her video. So I don't know if they have English subtitles for the video, and now it's just...
This sounds very similar to ISIS. You know how ISIS used to put out videos like this too.
No.
There's a good reason why people are comparing from this. I don't think it has audio. Oh, geez, look at her arm.
Yep.
Yeah, she got very very messed up. You can tell, like, she's got tattoos.
Oh, there it is.
My dad's picking up Curtis in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is this girl, and essentially what she's saying, because Ben Shapiro went over what she was saying, and she is saying it's like, oh yes, like I've been treated well, and they healed my arm, like they took care of my arm after it was injured, and like I haven't been abused, and I haven't had anything happen to me, and it's like, okay, well, we all know how these terrorists get these videos. And it's basically they find someone who's willing to not be shot.
It's, what was it? How do I put it? It's like if you have a hostage situation, like we've all seen the hostage movies, like every like major hostage situation movie, whatever. At every point along the entire negotiations, if the people like robbing the bank have hostages, they are always fair game for like basically the police to come in and kill them. Okay, they're always fair game. So as long as they have the hostages, they're always like a target for either secret shots or whatever. It's just like the negotiation. I'm finding it amazing that people are saying like, we should just kind of like, like Israel should just kind of back off. They've made their point, and I'm like, Hamas is still holding hostages, Israeli hostages. And you're saying like, just kind of throw off your hands and go back. I'm like, no. If you're going to argue that Gaza and the Palestinian, like terrorists over there, that let's just kind of like let bygones be bygones. I'm like, they still have hostages. you actually have to make the case that Hamas has to release hostages at the very least, very least, before you can even ask for a ceasefire. You have to basically like strong arm Hamas and say, give those stinking hostages back before you can even talk about a ceasefire. A ceasefire is not even on the table while they're holding hostages.
Well,
like that
especially while there's hostages. And the ceasefire is nowhere even near the table. Like, it's nowhere close to the table as long as the Hamas leadership is like, they want to target the Hamas leadership, but the problem is that mainly those in charge of Hamas have left a long time ago, and the majority of people that are left are kind of the foot soldiers for Hamas, and they're the civilians, which Hamas won't let leave. I remember I had so many people that were like, "Oh, Hamas, like that's not true. Hamas is not forcing them to stay." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" They've put up blockades. They have taken, like, people were trying to drive out, and Hamas would take them, shoot them, and then steal their car and add it to the blockade.
Yeah, because it's there's videos, like Ben Shapiro shows some videos, audios like of like Israeli negotiators trying to like reason with people in Gaza, say like, get out, we're about to bomb the territory,
and they're like, we can't,
we don't want. We don't want to. No, they actually specifically said like, no, we'd rather die.
Some were saying we'd rather die. And then I remember there was a phone call between, there was a Palestinian and his IDF soldier, and he's like, no, they prevented me from leaving. They took my car from me. And the IDF soldier is like, where is this? Like, we'll try and take this like installation out so that people can leave. Because we want you to, like, if you want to be able to leave, if you want to be able to not be killed in one of these raids, then we want to be able to give you the opportunity to leave.
I think, and another thing that I think is important, I think we need to also add something to this. Okay, there's a very strong narrative out there. Now I'm gonna I'm just gonna share you the link for it while I'm sharing this one. It's on my Northern Light. One of the posts I made. It's from Ben Shapiro.
Okay.
If I can go find it. So one of the things that they're doing is that they're trying to tell you that Hamas is just like a tiny proportion of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Like, everyone else is innocent, everyone else is like good people, and they're trying to argue. You know what I'm talking about, right? They're trying to argue that, it's only a tiny proportion of people that are fanatical and the people that are crazy, and so this is the premise upon which they're calling for people to be imported. So I put it on the chat there, Stephen, on the Twitch chat. So only a tiny proportion of the people in the Gaza Strip are the crazy fanatical ones, right? But Ben Shapiro basically goes through and he shows that people are just assuming that these are just regular people and they think like us, but they're not. They are not regular people, and their indoctrination efforts are.
It starts so young.
It's like, here, go to the what is it? The 220. Go to the 206 mark. I think that's where he kind of ramps up.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Just want to show you. This is the stuff they showed to their kids. They start young. Yeah.
Sick. The Palestinian Authority is a sick organization. Islamic Jihad is sick.
On the Twitch.
Hey, here again, this is how education goes.
I apologize.
Yeah. You're welcome. That's why I keep the Twitch stream live, so people I can keep an eye on that.
Those in the Palestinian areas. Yeah, this is a mouse, or it's actually a giant bee, saying, Rowan, I want you to pick up a stone, and when the Jews come, to take it and throw it. Here's a cartoon of a small Palestinian child shooting at the Jews and dropping Jewish stars on the. These are cartoon characters, and dropping Jewish stars on the Israeli soldiers. This is another children's cartoon. Oh, Allah, support our brothers in Gaza and destroy the Jews. These are all animated shows for obviously small kids. And there is a devilish character holding a Jewish star. Okay, how about this one? Palestinian children playing a great game. This is a small child here saying, "O sons of Zion, O the most evil of creatures, O barbaric apes." You can hear the voice, it's like a 5-year-old. Jerusalem rejects you and vomits your filth.
This is so messed up.
These are a choir of small children, O explosive device of glory. With her blood, she created
so
freedom.
Culty.
Yeah.
Ask suicide bomber Fatima al-Najjar how one should live a life of pride. These kids are like 5, 6, 7 years old who are singing this. It's all on Palestinian TV. Now, have you ever seen anything like that out of the woodwork and acting? They literally are play acting. And they have kids who are pretending to be Jewish, and a kid who comes along that they get themselves some yam. This kid says, yes, they teach us that the Zionists.
Yeah. Like the indoctrination starts at such an early age.
Mm-hmm. And you see, like, I think like here, I'm just gonna find the spot where it shows they said, okay, 621, go to the 621 mark. They got some footage from GoPro that some of the terrorists had when they landed in Israel, and the footage actually, the picture actually shows like these young kids holding. So at the 621 mark, just kind of go to that spot. The footage shows these very young kids, like boys and like probably like 14, 15 years old.
Footage includes videos of kids who are training for terror. You can see these are kids wearing Hamas operative uniforms. And you can see in the background, some of these kids are what, 13, 14 years old maybe? Wearing like full-on military gear, carrying AK-47s, getting ready to murder some Jews.
You gotta fly
this kid is maybe 9, and he's carrying a gun and pointing it at the camera while wearing military fatigues. So when Ron DeSantis
So basically, the idea here is that they're trying to give you this idea of equivalency. Okay, there's like, oh, Hamas is just a tiny minority, and I'm not like literally coming down and saying like, oh, kids are evil. I'm just saying these kids and these families and these women, like all of the people there, are fully bought in to the idea that Israel is basically scum. They're basically like need to be like wiped off the face of the earth, and they've been heavily indoctrinated. This is why, when you see videos of people here in North America, in the streets, talking about how they support Hamas, these are the same people that grew up in the Middle East, in areas where they have similar thinking. Like ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, this kind of thinking is widespread in the Middle East. So we have to be extremely careful. And so when they say like, oh, we're hitting like innocent civilians, like, yes, we're hitting children, but you have to remember, like, these kids in that picture, holding those AK-47s, if they're like armed in the hospital and they get blown up in like in a civilian area, guess what? When they count civilian casualties, they say how many children were killed. They include boys like this who were holding AK-47s. Oh, they were like 40 children. It's like, yes, technically they are children, but they're also militants. And so this is part of the sleight of hand that Hamas uses to try to sway, like, public opinion in the media. So a lot of people, including my own mother, are buying into this idea that there's just innocent people, like they have nothing to do with this. They don't understand that they're being played not only by Hamas but by their enablers in the media, who are more than happy to carry water for terrorism. So. Take it away, Stephen.
Yep. All right, so continuing on with more stories. So some actually good news. 2 senior Hamas leaders killed in Israeli strike, highest ranking Hamas official killed since the barbarians attacked Israel. So 2 top Hamas leaders were killed today. I don't know if this is from... Yep, this is from today. In Israeli strikes, Ayman Nofel, a top commander in Hamas's military, and the Israeli Air Force announced Monday that it killed Osama Mazzini, the head of Hamas's Shura Council, and the group's chief hostage negotiator.
Interesting.
So,
is that a video of the strike?
I think so.
Let's see. Oh yeah, this is a drone.
Boom.
Oh no. Oh yeah, that's like a full-on explosion.
Yep.
Yeah, I think one of the things people have to remember is that, like, Israel, it's a modern military, which means that they have precision weapons, precision missiles, precision airstrikes. Okay, which means they can hit very specific targets. That means when you see explosion. People like you're being bombarded with images of explosions in Gaza, and of course people are like, "Oh my goodness, this is terrible." You're like, what they don't tell you is that they're not just hitting they're not just like throwing missiles nilly willy. They're hitting targets that their intelligence basically has told them these are military targets. And by the way, like you don't hear this in like previous wars. Like remember the Battle of Britain, Stephen? Like when Germany was like battling like England, and they were trying to attack them. They went after London. They were literally like just bombing London during World War II. People don't see that as like a war crime. They're like, no, this is what happens during war. Like the British basically like made bomb shelters and had to hide away because of the bombing that was happening in civilian areas. Nobody argues that this was a crime against humanity or something like that. This is like what happens in war. Like you are bombing cities, you're bombing all sorts of places. England and Americans did the same thing. They went to Berlin, they went to like German cities, and they bombed them because unfortunately a lot of the military, a lot of the factories, a lot of the places that they needed to hit were also next to civilian areas. So it's war. When you have war, you're going to hit targets. I'm not saying I like it. I'm saying it's an unfortunate reality of war.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have time. You don't have the ability to completely insulate, strikes from everyone getting hit. And unfortunately, Hamas is making it worse. If you want to say why is the civilian casualties so high, it's because Hamas is basically making sure the civilians are everywhere. So it's a lot of it is
Mm-hmm.
Rules of war. Rules of war are kind of a nebulous. Do you want to take it?
Well, okay. I'm just waiting for Kissing Gonzo to respond. I'm thinking that he's probably going to say that we're excusing this supposed attack on the hospital, but the hospital attack, by every single piece of evidence, came from Hamas. Yes, and it is true. What is true in World War II is not true in 2023. But what is true is that just as the Germans raised up the Nazi youth to hate the Jews, so too do the Palestinians.
Yeah. And I think if you want to have a little an example, I'd say if you look at the war in Iraq, the Iraq War, okay? You had battles and you have strikes that took place in Iraq, in Baghdad. And a lot of those battles, a lot of those strikes that were happening from the American military were hitting military targets. The problem is military targets are often within cities. And unfortunately, when you have to hit military targets, when they're in the city, you're going to get a lot of explosions that are going to hit surrounding areas. I find it amazing that people forget. Like they just suddenly believe that war is somehow this thing that can be completely and totally kept perfect, like that any civilian casualties can be avoided at all costs. Speaking of modern wars, in the past, what would people do in the past? Like before the modern era, the armies would go out into like these open fields. Like if you think of the American Revolution or the Civil War, you basically have these armies. They meet out in the fields, out away from civilians, and they'd battle it out on the fields. That's how wars used to be conducted. In the modern era, we don't have that anymore. We don't have open pitch battles out in the open. You have basically armies that have to strike military targets, which are always, basically always, close to or remotely close to, major cities. Okay, and that's what happened. I'm not defending it. I'm saying this is a reality of modern war.
Yep.
Okay. When you have China attacking Taiwan, guess what? Taiwanese civilians are going to be killed. And unfortunately, in Hamas and Gaza Strip, you're gonna have this is even more true because unlike any other nation, this is another example of how Hamas itself is reprehensible. Any other nation will at least try to protect their civilian population and try to move them away from the battle. Hamas does the opposite, and they put them right in the line of fire. So you have to remember, like, this is not even more than modern warfare. This is even more unconventional because you have like modern war, and you have one nation or one group of people, one one government that's literally trying to put people in harm's way. So it's even worse. So I think in this case, in this war, Hamas basically they basically launched this entire thing, and now they're crying that they're in a war. I'm like, no, like, you don't get to cry like, oh, we're in a war and we're getting hit. It's like, well, no, especially if you're still holding hostages, like I said before.
Yep.
They're still holding hostages. I'm like, if they want to like ceasefire, they have to take some actions to get that ceasefire. But they're not. They fully want this thing, and they're willing to die for the cause of Allah. So I don't know, Steven, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope. It's fairly succinct. We've talked about this several times over, and our position on this is fairly clear. So we don't need to reiterate it 7 times.
No, exactly.
It could be interesting and made potentially far more complicated with the potential Joe Biden visit tomorrow to Israel.
This one's interesting. I'm very curious as to the logic of this one.
From the Post-Millennial, he's visiting Israel on Wednesday in a surprise move demonstrating his support for the country amidst the turmoil caused by the unexpected terrorist attack. Announcement of Biden's trip was made by the Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who disclosed the plan from Israel's capital, Tel Aviv. And following a meeting with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Blinken emphasized that Biden's visit intends to reaffirm the United States' solidarity with Israel. He's coming here for a critical moment for Israel, for the region, and for the world. According to Blinken, Biden aims to directly understand the needs of the Israeli people in securing their safety. So,
do you know how long it took for Biden to go to Ukraine after the war started?
What was it, like 14 months?
It was over a year.
Yeah, it was over a year.
Yeah,
I think it was this May.
Yeah, this past summer. Yeah.
That he came?
It's because they had the fake. Remember the fake air sirens?
Yes, I remember the fake air sirens.
Yeah. So basically, this kind of shows you that although Ukraine, they try to like talk up how important it is, Israel is actually important. Shows you that there's a legitimate like threat of real war in this one, whereas Ukraine is more like everyone's just kind of musing. But this is the kind of thing that could very quickly spiral out of control. So what do you think, Stephen? Do you think that there's a chance that, they were talking on Timcast.rl today, saying that, imagine the scenario where Biden is hit or like, God forbid, kidnapped or targeted by terrorists while he was there. Imagine that scenario. There's a lot of like, logistically, some powerful things that could happen if they want to get rid of Kamala as a go-to vice president. If Joe Biden is taken out in some way, either like incapacitated or killed or kidnapped, Kamala becomes like the president by default for a very short time, and then she basically has had her time as president and she's gone. A lot of people are talking like this could almost be a way of giving like Biden a glorious exit or something like that, or a way of kind of manufacturing some kind of a false flag kind of operation to get Biden out, but in a way that is defensible and will galvanize people towards war. I don't know. It's interesting. It's also odd to have a president literally go to a war zone, because this is actually a war zone. There's not like Ukraine where you can go to the northwestern part of Ukraine where there's no battling going on. No, this is Israel is literally in the midst of an actual war right now. What do you think about this, Stephen? Do you think that there's something else afoot here?
I don't know if there's something else afoot. This seems like a fairly foolish decision to me, especially considering that Hamas clearly doesn't have proper control over their rockets, and where they're firing, they're just kind of firing indiscriminately. And there are some radicals who would be inspired to kill the American president, even if he is kind of soft on Hamas and soft on Iran and soft on all these kind of jihadi terrorist organizations. So it's possible. I think it's pretty slim. Like, they will be trying to take some extra effort to maintain his safety, but like I also watched that segment of Timcast IRL. Like, if Biden gets taken out and the United States does not respond, then there's like the United States. What will they do? Like, I was actually really disappointed with the kind of live audience that was listening on Monday night, because they're like, oh, like, we shouldn't have a response if Biden gets hit, but if it was Trump, then we should. And I'm like, it doesn't matter who the president is.
Yeah.
If the president is assassinated in a foreign land, then it's about who. It's not about who they're attacking. It's about that they are attacking the symbol and the representation of your country. Like,
I think they were actually trolling. I think that was like full on trolling.
I'm sure
like,
some were.
Even Tim was laughing. He's like, like, everyone says, like, if it's Trump, like, yeah, we're going to war, man.
Mm-hmm. So like even if Trudeau was over in Israel and he was attacked, I'd be like, okay, well, I don't really want to go to war, but I do like the whole idea of, like, what was it, letters of marque. It's like we should be able to, like, if there was some distinct effort and some distinct intent to target American officials, especially the president, then there should be a specific intent saying, all right, well, we're going to have very specific intent, and we're going to use the American military or the Canadian military or whatever military is attacked and take out those who are attacking us. So it'll be interesting. Again, I don't have a massive kind of belief that something will happen, but it is definitely within the realm of possibility. And the air raid sirens won't be fake this time.
No, and I think it's just a really, it's a really what do you call it? Reckless move. I think that's the best way to put it. It's kind of like unnecessarily reckless. Like, is there an actually, like, legitimate reason for him to be there? I don't think so. Now, everything that he can do from, like, from safety. There's a reason why, even like at the end of, like, the old age of combat, there's a reason why kings and generals were not in the midst of battles. This is why they stayed back and watched from, like, the back of the war. Right, because they're too valuable to basically, like, be right in the midst of it. So the idea that Biden is going right into Israel during the middle of this war, it just seems like unnecessarily risky. So I'm not sure. I think it's foolish, but yeah, let's go into the next story and talk about, like, World War III. Is that actually a possibility in this conflict, Stephen?
It's possible.
All right, let's do it.
Let's talk about it from the Daily Mail. Are we on the brink of World War III? Justin Bronk, no idea who that is, reveals how... Oh, he's the guy who wrote it. I was like, I have no idea who that is. I'm like, oh, it's the author.
Justin Bronk.
Reveals how Israeli invasion of Gaza could trigger a wider conflict that could see Russia and China supporting Iran while lining up against America in the West, while stopping short of direct hostilities. Standoff over Israel-Hamas could have the potential to drag America, Russia, and China into the conflict, a military expert warned today. Professor Justin Bronk said that if Iran attacks Israel in retaliation for invading Gaza, Moscow and Beijing will be compelled to step in and the wars could escalate. He pointed out that Iran and its Hezbollah proxies in Lebanon provide a potential second front, with the United States warning Hezbollah and Iran to stay out.
Mm-hmm.
So if Iran gets involved, then Russia might support it, and the war could include the United States if Iran and its proxies attack Israel over the next coming weeks. So Israel has now bombed areas of southern Gaza, where it told Palestinians to flee ahead of an expected invasion. Violence along Israel's border with Lebanon has also led to concerns over a widening regional conflict. So it's possible that we could be kind of looming on the brink of World War III. There are some interesting kind of biblical-esque prophecies which are coming to pass over, like, the past few months, and more specifically over the past kind of few days. So it's things are, I would say there's a definite maybe, but kind of erring on the side of normalcy bias. I would lean that World War III is still a couple years away. Like, I wouldn't say it's more than 10.
Yeah.
Because everything is sort of ramping up and ramping up and ramping up.
I think one of the okay. So here's some things to consider for this concept. Okay, World War One, which is like the comparison I was making before, like the idea that you have major powers aligning and backing smaller powers or smaller nations, and like the ingredients being there. One of the problems right now with the idea of the World War Three scenario is that unlike World War One, all of the major powers, Germany, the England, France, Russia, even Russia, all of them were really kind of like hoping for some conflict. They were like chomping up at France wanted to get revenge against Germany for a major defeat that they suffered like a few years prior to World War One. England wanted to to basically stop Germany's expansion and it's like basically like military expansionism. Russia wanted to basically prove that they still had it, and Germany was just basically chomping at the bit as well. They thought that oh we're an advanced military, we can take anybody, and so everyone was really raring for war in World War One. And right now, China, as much as they could get involved, they don't really want to go to war right now. They're not.
No.
They're building towards a war in the future.
Yeah. Well,
and there's a reason why they still have invaded Taiwan.
Yeah, their goal is Taiwan.
Taiwan is really their goal. If they get into war, it would be because they feel like they have no choice. Like they have to jump in, but this is not the ideal time for them. Russia is involved right now in a major war in Ukraine. They, although they like the distraction of like everyone focusing on Israel and not bothering them in Ukraine, getting into a war, two wars basically, one in Ukraine and one in the Middle East, is not in their best favor. So, and America, as much as they talk and browbeat, it's not ideal. I don't think this is the best time for everyone. And so I think you're right. Even though this could potentially escalate into something bigger, I don't think the major powers are really chomping at the bit right now for a war. Iran, I think, is the key ingredient. I think if Iran decides that they're going to jump in and go full-on declaration of war against Israel, I think that is the key ingredient. If Hezbollah goes in, I don't think the major powers will jump in. But if Iran goes in, I think it's all hands on deck, and I think we'll see what happens after that. Iran is the key. I think that's the key. So we'll see what happens there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But let's go to some of the fallout from that in closer to our shores back in North America. There's been some fallout here as well.
There has been. So, iconic Jewish New York City deli.
See, even the ambulances are going nuts, because of all the fallout.
Okay, that's not due to the world going crazy. That's simply due to where I live.
That seems to be almost prophetic.
Well, okay. So Danny knows where I live, and he knows that just down the road from me, this is not an ambulance, this is a fire truck. And I live probably about 500 meters from a fire station. Yep. So hearing fire trucks go by all the time is not an uncommon experience. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
So stop saying it is. Stop trying to make fetch a thing. So, a New York City deli was vandalized with a swastika in an anti-Semitic attack that took place after the eatery posted pro-Israel content on their social media. The owner of the 2nd Avenue Deli told the Post that a tenant on the Upper East Side of the building alerted him that the storefront had been defaced with a hate symbol. This morning, we saw it. It was just terrible. Just horrible. It makes me sad. It's sad that people feel the need to say they hate Jews in 2023. That people can just be so open about the Jew hatred is out therein. Now people can just feel more empowered to say it. This first time that Libawall has a symbol of hate plastered onto his building, but he said he now has always been prepared for this to happen. He was always concerned about hanging Israeli and American flags in his window because he feared people would come out and throw rocks at my storefront. So that says Homeland Security.
Wow. Oh, okay. They're comparing Homeland Security to Nazis, I guess. That makes you wonder who actually made that sign.
Yeah. Well, that was sort of like the people who drew swastikas on my house. Not my house, but my old flag.
That's right. They have to show you, Steven.
What? Yeah, they
had to show you somehow.
Mm,
They had to put you in your place.
sure, they did.
By the way, right now it's funny. For the last ever since before the Israel Hamas conflict, whenever we saw like Nazi symbols anywhere, most of the time we could assume it was a hoax. Remember, like the swastika hoaxes were like rampant all over North America. People were like seeing there was even that story of that girl from the one who does the voice for that little girl in Wreck-It Ralph.
Sarah
She's like
Silverman?
yeah. She said oh my god, I saw a swastika the other day on the street, and it turns out it was actually a mark that like construction companies put on the concrete to mark some specific thing, and everyone's just laughing at her because she's like it's not a Nazi symbol. That's actually a very important construction mark or something like that. But nowadays, after Israel and Hamas thing started, now most of the time, if you see a swastika, you can be pretty sure it's because either it's a Hamas supporter, like a Palestinian supporter, or that it's a leftist that are trying to double down on their beliefs that of anti-Semitism. So now it's almost like the Nazi the swastika is making a comeback right now. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're both doing the chat, man. Someone's got to keep it up. Someone's got to keep it up. Come on.
All right.
Fine,
So fine. I will keep it up. I'll keep it up. So
Stephen cannot do it all.
I'll switch to the next story. So from Fortune, Harvard loses another major donor over its dismal failure to take an unequivocal stand against the barbaric murders of Israelis by Hamas. So the Wexner Foundation became the latest donor to pull support from the Harvard University over its response to the Hamas attack in Israel. Foundation's wealth is derived from L Brands, the former parent companies of Victoria's Secret and Bath and Body Works. The philanthropy, chaired by Leslie Wexner and Abigail Wexner, said in letters to the Harvard Board of Overseers Monday that it's ending its financial and programmatic relationship with the university. The foundation supports up to 10 government and public service professionals from Israel each year to pursue a one-year degree from the Harvard Kennedy School. We're stunned and sickened at the dismal failure of Harvard's leadership to take a clear and unequivocal stand against the barbaric murders of innocent Israelis by terrorists last Saturday. So, as we spoke on Thursday, I believe, Harvard President Claudine Gay, who took office in July, has struggled to placate some critics who initially included former university president Larry Summers. Summers said he was outraged by Harvard's initial silence after more than 30 student groups issued a statement blaming the violence solely on Israel and not Hamas, which is designated a terrorist organization by the United States and the European Union. Another interesting fact is that Claudine Gay, I don't know if it mentions what she said in this article. I don't think it does. But Claudine Gay was like, well, we support the right of free speech on Harvard, and people should have like the freedom to discuss ideas and to disseminate them and to have open dialogue across the aisle. And I'm like, okay, it's an okay standpoint to have. And if you stood by that principle 100% for all points of view, then I'd respect you. But problem is that Claudine Gay does not. And it was interesting because Matt Walsh pointed out yesterday that Claudine Gay will do this for pro-Hamas groups, but for when it came to there was a former professor by the name of Roland Fryer. Do you remember what he did?
On Schreier?
Roland Fryer.
I don't think I've heard about this one. What happened?
Okay, so Roland Fryer wrote a study several years ago, and this study proved that the police in the United States do not target and do not treat black individuals any worse, and actually, in fact, they treat black individuals better than other minority groups, and especially whites. They are twice as likely to shoot whites as they are to shoot blacks. And because this went against Claudine Gay's kind of research and dissertation and her beliefs, Claudine Gay openly advocated for Roland Fryer to have his tenure removed and for him to be banned from the university entirely.
Wow.
So this is not about free speech on campus. This is about ideas that I agree with and I'm unwilling to condemn publicly.
Yeah. I think they hide behind the idea of like okay, so somebody imagine if you're at dinner with your family and you're like, I don't know, your uncle comes to dinner and he says something incredibly racist. Like, would it be okay for you to be basically be like, well, it's a free country, he can say whatever he wants? Or should you probably be like, yeah, Uncle Bob, like, that's not okay. If you're gonna keep talking like that, we're gonna ask you to leave. I'm like, that would be an appropriate response to, like, like speech. You're not banning speech. You're not telling him he can't speak, but Harvard has a responsibility not to ban speech, but to basically, like, hold the students accountable for what they do and what they say. If you're going to be saying things that are literally dragging the university's reputation through the mud, there should be consequences for that. There should be. Like, I'm not saying that, like, like, I know that, like, it sounds like you're penalizing speech, but, like, no, you're actually like penalizing, like speech itself should not be, like, censored. Like, you should not be like, oh, you can't say anything. But, like, how you respond to the statements said by people, like, that is actually a legitimate, like, thing. Like, if you're a president, for example, of a major company, and you say things that bring massive, massive, like, disrepute to the country, you should be held accountable. Because, like, yeah, like, it's I don't know, it's not as simple as they make it sound. Basically what I think should be said about that. So yeah, so, like, Harvard is basically it's basically showing its true colors. And people are basically starting to see Harvard is it was a once prestigious and top of the line, the best of the best of the schools in the United States. Now it's a laughing stock, and it should be, because they've basically, like, they're reaping what they've sown. They've sown a toxic and destructive ideology that basically pitted, like, they said that all victim groups basically are allowed to do and say whatever they want, and now they got one of their victim groups saying horrific things, and now they're bearing the consequences of it. So I really do hope that they get defunded, and I hope that the school learns a very hard lesson, because I don't think that school is really beneficial. I think if anybody gets into Harvard today, I think it's more about, oh, that sucks, rather than like, oh, congratulations. It's no longer a prestigious institution anymore.
Totally.
It's a totally captured one. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to take the semaphore story?
Yeah, I'll grab that just before.
Get in there.
Before we move and switch topics. So, final kind of topic about Israel, because we can't talk about it forever. As interesting as it is lately. So, inside MSNBC's Middle East conflict. So, the MSNBC has quietly taken 3 of its Muslim broadcasters out of the anchor's chairs since Hamas's attack on Israel last Saturday. The network did not air a scheduled Thursday night episode of the Mehdi Hassan show on the streaming platform Peacock. MSNBC also reversed the plan for Ayman Moyeldin to fill in this week in the network to replace host Joy Reid's 7 p.m. show. Moyeldin, an Egyptian-American journalist and veteran NBC News correspondent, covered the conflict from Gaza for 2 years. So, and also 2 network sources with knowledge of the plans told Semaphore the network also has plans to have Alicia Menendez fill in the upcoming weekend for Ali Velshi, a 3rd Muslim-American host on the Sunday interviewed a spokesperson for the Palestinian Authority. Some staff at MSNBC have been concerned by the moves, feeling all 3 hosts have some of the deepest knowledge on the conflict. NBC said the shifts are coincidental and the 3 continue to appear on air to report and provide analysis. So, I don't think this is coincidental.
No? What do you know?
Oh, because Tim Pool was covering it the other day. MSNBC, since last Saturday, has lost 30% of its viewers.
I heard about that. Yeah, that was crazy.
So, this, to me, direct response to that being like, oh, people are reacting because we are unwilling, like they were joining CBC and being unwilling to call Hamas a terrorist organization. And they were basically just like both sidesing the argument, equating Israel and Hamas as both evil. Yeah,
did you hear what, just for a little, like, addition to that, you hear what that girl on The View said? It's like, oh, Hamas is a terror group, but so are the Proud Boys. It's like, are you serious right now? They're both the same, Stephen. They're
Oh,
both
yes.
equally bad.
Both sides.
Like,
Ooh,
morally equivalent here. Proud
so
Boys,
stupid.
morally equivalent to like
Yeah.
Hamas. Like,
Be
give me a
okay,
break.
who has the Proud Boys killed again? Okay. And how many has Hamas killed this week?
Stephen, you're using logic. This is like their kryptonite.
I know.
Their kryptonite is logic.
That's true.
Don't do
That's
it.
true. Can't do it.
It's sad.
So that's all we're going to talk about in terms of Israel. Can't have it take up every single show. So we're just going to leave it at that for this week. And we'll go from there. So moving on into other kind of pitched battles, let's talk about the race for the House speakership. So House speakership up in the air. Yes.
Dave Scalise is out. He left early.
Steve
and
Scalise.
Even though Trump was being rumored for a while, sounds like Trump's not a deal. So now we have Jim Jordan. Quick, before you start, Stephen, tell me what your initial what are your thoughts about Jim Jordan himself?
I don't like Jim Jordan has been fairly consistently like strong conservative. He's definitely more conservative than McCarthy. But even if he was to get the House speakership, he's going to have his hands tied in the same way as McCarthy.
Yeah.
Like it's something it's an unavoidable reality. Like, yes, we would love for Jim Jordan to be like, all right, we're going to push this conservative policy and this conservative policy. And oh, we have a conservative Senate, no, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything that the House passes has to go through 2 more houses of government.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, as much as we hate it, the House has to have some concessions and sort of meet in the middle, because otherwise the policies that are going to be passed at the middle of the night are all going to be, okay, well, no matter what the Conservatives do, if the Conservatives try and pass bills which are beneficial to Conservatives, then the Senate and the presidency aren't going to pass them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have to make some concessions. We just have to be very specific on where we make those concessions. And like I thought McCarthy was trying to do a decent job of like riding that line. But unfortunately, for a lot of people, that wasn't enough. And I don't know what's going to be ahead. But if 20 Republicans are willing to go against Jim Jordan, like this could end up resulting in a Democrat Speaker of the House.
Yeah, see, I don't really understand. Okay, I understand why Matt Gaetz and a lot of the people in the Freedom Caucus rejected what's his name, McCarthy, because they had goals. They had things that they wanted to do. They wanted to make some real fundamental changes in that needed to be done in the House. But ultimately, they didn't reject McCarthy. They basically wanted to, like, do something substantial, using their small caucus to try to make some significant changes. There was a purpose behind their obfuscation of McCarthy. However, I don't really understand. I guess I really don't understand why Republicans would just reject Jim Jordan outright. Like I can't see why the Freedom Caucus would reject him. We have to look at the members who rejected him.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Let's talk about the story. So briefly,
go for it.
He only secured 200 votes in the first round of voting, with 20 Republicans voting against him, and Congress's lower chamber has had no speaker since Kevin McCarthy, and even the Democratic nominee Hakeem Jeffries earned more votes than Jim Jordan. So Jordan vowed to keep working and expressed confidence he would ultimately emerge victorious. So these are the ones that voted against him in the first ballot vote. So I'm going to see if I actually kind of just recognize some of these votes. I don't really notice any of these. And most of these, like, none of these are voting for, like, Democrats. They're voting for either McCarthy or Scalise or Zeldin.
Yeah, and it's
like,
but somebody voted for like Kevin McCarthy, even though he said he's not running.
Oh no, like there's like on this list of the 20 Republicans, like 7 of them voted for McCarthy.
Which I don't understand. Like, what are you doing? Like, he said he doesn't want to do it again. You're not going to get him back in that way. I don't know. Maybe it's like some kind of like desperate, like, way of saying, like, we want McCarthy back. But it's just, I don't know. Like, there's something about, I hate to say it, like, people have compared the Democrats to the Borg. Okay, there's a reason why they work is because they all vote in unison. They all vote as a block. Okay, I don't think it's good, but there's a certain level of like efficiency you can get when they all vote as a block. However, the Republicans right now, they're basically shooting themselves in the foot. All of the things that they can do, all of the things that they can accomplish, they can accomplish only by working together. But right now, there's a lot of what do you call it? A lot. I've heard things like stupid things, like people saying like, "Oh, I can't vote for him because I'll never get voted again or get reelected." I'm like, give me a break.
Yeah, that's
like he's a conservative member of the House. Like, if you're telling me your constituents are going to be like, oh, you voted for like a Republican, like, House Speaker, how dare you? We're not going to vote for you again. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I think a lot of this is just prejudice and a lot of like just, I don't know, like just there's a reason why people don't like Congress. Like, I'm not, I haven't heard yet any legitimate reasons to reject Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan he has done some amazing things over the last like couple of years. Some of you and I feature some amazing videos and clips of him, like literally like doing some amazing work. So and everyone I hear, like all the conservative commentators, from Charlie Kirk to Jack Posobiec to all these people, they're all like, yeah, he would be great. But no, these people are partisan. They're not giving you like rational reasons. They're just like, I don't like him. It's like, why not? Because he sucks. I'm like, ugh. Like, yeah, this is why a lot of people are losing faith in the Republican Party because of things like this. Like, he's Republican. Give me a break. He's your best choice. Go for it. Just stop obfuscating. You gotta move forward, man. Come on.
Time to move forward. Time to stop the infighting. Yep. And something that's sort of interesting with infighting and trying to stop the infighting is this recent poll from Marist. So from the Post-Millennial, and I don't want to say this out loud, but I did say this. Marist poll shows RFK takes massive chunk of Trump support in three-way race, swings election to Biden. New poll released on Tuesday has revealed that RF Kennedy Jr. now running it as an independent instead of a Democrat. He's taking a chunk of Trump support, pushing Biden into the lead. According to NPR PBS NewsHour Marist national poll, in two-way race between Trump and Biden, 49% of registered voters said they would vote for Biden, where 46% said they would vote for Trump, with 5% being undecided. With Kennedy thrown into the mix, Biden support dropped to 44% amongst registered voters, while Trump sunk to 37%. Kennedy received 16% of support from registered voters, with 3% remaining undecided. Poll was conducted on October 11th of 12,000 registered voters and have a margin of error of 3.9%. Notably, Trump saw an edge among independent voters over Biden in a two-way race, with 49% saying they would vote for Trump, while 43% said they would vote for Biden. 8% were undecided. In a three-way race, 34% of independents said they would vote for Trump, 33% said they would vote for Biden, and 29% they would vote for Kennedy. 4% were undecided. So
that's interesting. Yeah, it's the opposite of what I was hearing before.
It depended on who you were listening to. Like, people like Tim Pool were very much in favor of saying that Kennedy would take votes from Biden because, he's running as a Democrat. It's like, well, yes, he's running as a Democrat, but he's not running as a typical Democrat. He's running as more of a populist Democrat. And one of the major of those three, Biden is not running as a populist. He's running as kind of the establishment candidate, saying that he's a moderate. Of course, he's not. But
he's more moderate than the rhinos.
Yes.
He's much more moderate than Nikki Haley or Mike Pence or what was the other one? Like those guys. He's not as moderate as Ron DeSantis or and I guess he's kind of like similar to Vivek, like Vivek. They have like similar kind of like approaches to a lot of things, but he's definitely more moderate than a lot of the old guard like Republicans.
Yeah, that's true.
So he may be establishment, and in the fact that he's the Republican, he might be the Republican candidate.
Yeah.
But he is not your typical Republican candidate.
No, but he is sort of running with kind of a very similar kind of typical Republican playbook.
Yeah.
And it's putting him more kind of in RFK ground than Biden.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because like I thought like like RFK would give like Democrats kind of a nice soft landing from like the craziness of the Democrats, but yeah, it sounds like they like he might be pulling support from Trump, which again like people who are kind of like on the fence, I could see that being the case too. By the way, like Kissing Gonzo says he likes more moderate people, progressive leaning if possible. I'm like, I'll say this. It's progressives that have gotten us in the mess that we're in. So the less progressive, the better. Because like just look at every major city that is like literally imploding all across North America
policies
because of progressive governments and policies. Yeah. So progressivism is not. It's not a virtue. It's a
vice. It's a vice.
It's basically it puts ideology above people. So like a small example. If you have a progressive government, that means that they're not focused on making policing better. They're focused on the ideological, like police bad, and they're going to defund police departments, making things less safe for you, and of course increasing crime.
They'll focus on the ideological kind of perceived victimhood, and it's
That's
like,
right.
oh, we're not trying to make the policies more just.
Yes,
we are trying to make it so that we are perceived as less racist. And if you're perceived as less racist, especially when there's no evidence that you're racist in the first place, then your actions will be trying to be perceived as less racist, and that means going soft on certain types of crime, and that'll be going soft on certain individuals. Which leads, of course, when you allow certain individuals to commit crimes, then you are inevitably going to create a more criminal society.
A good example of that would be here in Alberta versus BC. In Alberta, the Conservative government, the leader of the Conservative government here, Danielle Smith, basically said she's not going to impose the same policies, the same failed policies that BC is doing of like expanding like those clinics that help people get free injections.
Yeah.
The BC model has proven that it's a colossal failure.
Yeah.
And she actually advocated for a model that actually helps people.
Yeah.
It's not just keeping the problem going. It's trying to solve it.
Yeah.
That is an example.
UCP,
yeah.
I tried to send you a picture or a few pictures over the weekend of some things which they covered at the United Conservative meeting.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yeah.
You did?
I did. Yeah, like the policies that they were trying to implement in their
for the UCP like policies.
They're voting on it. Yeah, they're voting on
them. And some of the policies, I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah, they were like really, really good.
Well, yeah, like school choice and school vouchers, great program. The whole idea of like establishing an Alberta constitution so the government can't just come in and wipe away rights via the charter whenever they feel like it. I'm like, my goodness.
They wanted to do some
just like exceptionally amazing.
They wanted to do one of them was like to promoting like election reform, like actually making elections more secure, which I was like, that's amazing. That's the kind of thing you want to see, right?
Make Alberta America.
One of them was like an initiative that prevents like the creation of like 15-minute cities. Yep. I was like, yep, I'm cool with that.
I'm cool with that. I haven't seen all the policy proposals, but I was like, dang, UCP, like you're basically becoming a state.
Yeah, I think there's a trend that I've heard a lot that the younger you are, the more likely you are to support progressive policies, progressive governments, and then the older you get, when you start like working full time, when you start like getting like home and mortgage and all this kind of stuff, the more conservative you become. Because you like when you're younger, you're all about like give me free stuff. When you're older, you're like get your hands out of my wallet. I want to just have the opportunity to, to make a living. So yeah, it's there's a reason why, like Alberta, which is very has a lot of private enterprise, probably the highest level of private companies, private employment in all of Canada, is also the most conservative province in the country. Because the more private enterprise you have, the more like libertarian and the more conservative you tend to be generally. But speaking of somebody who is out of touch with the conservative crowd, let's
Or
talk
just
about
generally
Biden
any
joining
crowd.
Truth Social.
Yeah, Biden joins True Social, immediately gets pummeled into oblivion.
Yes,
So,
he does.
Biden Harris HQ. We'll see how this goes. Converts welcome. Okay.
Converts welcome.
In what seems like an act of desperation, Joe Biden campaign joined President Trump's True Social platform and posted a message asking for converts, prompting a torrent of responses, essentially telling them where to go and how to get there. In a second post, the Biden campaign used a clip of Ron DeSantis claiming Trump added $7.8 trillion to the national debt in a blatant attempt to sow division amongst conservatives. Campaign told Fox News that it's attempting to have a little fun on True Social as well as holding MAGA accountable on their own platform. So
that's not going to go well.
Oh boy.
Someone should tell, someone should tell Mr.
Incident
Biden
ratio.
that go back into his basement. He's not going to stay out of MAGA country. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's fairly entertaining. Fairly entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know why the Biden team thought that would work. It seems like a really, really stupid move.
It's kind of like the same kind of like blunder that Vivek Ramaswamy did when he went on TikTok.
Yep.
Not long after advocating that nobody should be on TikTok.
Yes, that was a fairly significant blunder.
Mm-hmm.
So, but politicians have been known to make blunders. Biden just makes about 10 times as many as anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 100 times as many because he can't speak English properly.
He can't really do much properly anyways, like including walk and chew gum.
Yes,
Biden
yes,
thing.
but somebody who shouldn't make mistakes but often does.
Oh, I was going to see how you're going to do that.
Prostitutes wearing only G-strings are prowling the sidewalks of National City, California, with a frustrated mayor saying he can't take action after Governor Newsom repealed law that banned loitering. Oh, look, another progressive policy gone really wrong.
No, this is what we want. We want more progressivism.
More progressivism, yes. Law changes in the state of California have allowed scantily clad sex workers to roam the streets, including, according to one mayor. Ron Morrison is attempting to crack down on the open prostitution affecting National City. Governor Newsom brought in changes that repealed laws banning loitering. So these sex workers are seen only wearing G-strings, have been pictured prowling the streets of a small California city, leaving one mayor frustrated. National City is spiraling out of control, according to Mayor Ron Morrison, due to brazen prostitutes who've been gathering in a downtown area. Prostitution is illegal in the state of California, but Morrison believes in a new law that banned old practices of making loitering with the intent to engage in prostitution illegal is responsible. Another law prohibits police from citing people suspected of soliciting sex based on appearances, allowing prostitutes to walk in the streets in little clothing. Morrison told CBS 8, police can't literally go and talk to them because they don't have a right to talk to them because they're not doing anything wrong for loitering for prostitution. Now, the law's changed. Even if they're going out talking to someone in their car and sitting them where... going out talking to someone in their car and sitting there when all they're wearing is less than a G-string. So...
Lovely.
Yeah. And then this is some of the pictures of the prostitutes just roaming around the city. Some of them are... Ugh. It's like...
They're not exactly like the top notch.
No, they're not sending their best.
It's not like you have picture images and like movies about prostitutes. That's not what they actually are in real life.
No.
But here's the point. Like the point is that one of the problems with this is why I always like to say progressive governments, one of the policies that defines them is they're pro-criminal. They're pro-crime. Their policies will always endorse and encourage crime, not dissuade it. So here we have a crime which is like disruptive. By the way, prostitution helps nobody. It only hurts people. It hurts everyone in society. And so like the idea that they're basically allowing this is because they're pro-crime.
Mm-hmm.
And because like progressive governments they have an incentive to make their society worse, not better. If you were legitimately a good mayor, a good city council, a good government, your goal is to reduce crime, and that includes theft. That includes violent crimes like assault and rape and all this kind of stuff, and that includes prostitution. But by making prostitution legal, by basically removing all of the penalties, then you're disincentivizing people from actually going after criminals, and so you're basically making this is how you create crime-ridden cities. Cities that nobody wants to live in, cities that cause people with money to flee, and this is how you destroy society. Right? It's basically when people basically can't even walk down the street without facing serious danger or harm, that's when people leave, and that's when the people that you want in your society are going to abandon you and pack up and leave. California is basically a cautionary tale in basically everything. They have some of the worst crime imaginable in that state, and the problem right now is that their government, the people in their government, I just can't. It's almost like an experimental. It's like this is if you want to try the most insane social experiments imaginable. I wonder what would happen if we did this. California is where you go. Anthony Weiner is the one who made that changed that law that basically made oh, by the way, if you have HIV, we're there's no penalty for you to hide that from somebody else. You can have sex with anybody you want, no penalty if you don't tell them that you have HIV. He took away that. He also made it legal for adult men to have sex with underage boys. That was Anthony Weiner. Good job, buddy.
Yeah.
So California is basically it's basically what was that? What was that doctor in during the Nazi regime that was experimenting on human beings, Stephen? He basically was it Mengele?
I think it was, yeah.
Maybe okay. So he basically, because of the opportunity that he had to basically he was sent all of these people that under normal circumstances it would be absolutely morally unethical and illegal to do human experimentation, but because of the crazy circumstances of society, he basically had fresh guinea pigs. California right now is basically treating people like fresh guinea pigs. Oh, good. Let's try the most insane policies and see how they turn out. It's basically everyone in California right now is a human guinea pig for social experimentation. Yeah, sucks to be right now. If you live there, you should probably get out of there quick.
Yep. Well, you should get out of California, but you should also get out of Seattle and Washington State. So, 911 audio reveals Seattle police allowed domestic abuse suspect to drive off with victim in car, would not pursue. Dang. So, Democratic-controlled state legislature passed HB 201 in 2021, which increased the standards of police pursuits and stops from a reasonable suspicion to a probable cause that the driver committed a serious crime. So, audio recordings have revealed that Seattle police let a domestic violence suspect flee with the victim still in the car thanks to a law passed that prevents police pursuits. According to an audio obtained by Safe Seattle last June, a Seattle woman dialed 911 after her boyfriend allegedly started threatening her with physical violence. She didn't end the call, and as a result, 911 recording captured the boyfriend's tirade. Victims, whose name is being withheld, can be heard in the recording begging to be released from the boyfriend's grip so she can go get her child. He threatens to punch her in the face and threatens to put her to sleep if she moves. During the recording, boyfriend allegedly dragged the victim to his vehicle and drove away, with the woman's phone still relaying everything to the 911 operator. And 911 dispatched a unit to follow the vehicle, which was able to be tracked through the phone's GPS. In the recording, sirens can be heard likely behind the vehicle. The vehicle stops, and the officer uses the PA to tell the driver to shut off the engine. However, the driver refuses, and the boyfriend can be heard yelling at the woman to flee and drive like she's crazy, likely knowing the result. The officer will be unable to pursue thanks to Washington state pursuit laws. Sirens can be heard shutting off. Another recording obtained by Safe Seattle. Officer could be heard telling 911 that he's not going to continue the pursuit. And she can be heard crying while her boyfriend is yelling at her to keep driving and blames her for the short police pursuit. Yikes.
Pro-criminal, like I told you.
Oh, yeah. Pro-criminal. No kidding.
Pro-criminal.
The fact that basically they're just oh, no, we can't we can't properly address these problems. Like, not only properly address these problems because they're understaffed,
Yeah.
but also when they put in policies like this, then who's going to want to be a cop if it's against the law for you to intervene and actually try and make an effort to save someone's life? Like, if this officer had arrested this guy and saved this woman's life, then this guy could sue him for not following the state traffic law. Like, that is beyond the pale of ridiculous. Like, if people are in danger, the police should be able to act. And sometimes you need to take fairly extreme measures. In this case, stopping a vehicle in which, like, the guy is going on a tirade about how he's going to attack her and assault her and potentially harm her kid, then, like, in that measure, in any decent state, the police should be charged for inaction.
Yeah.
In that case.
Well, the problem here is that another consequence of progressive policies here. If you have like a conservative policy, a politician trying to or government, they're going to say, okay, we value the right to self-defense, right? The idea that you have the right to defend yourself. Hence, a lot of places in the United States, you're allowed to have tasers, you're allowed to have pepper spray, you're allowed to have guns in order for self-defense. And a lot of these scenarios, like the only viable, defense that woman has is basically to be able to protect herself if she is caught in an impossible situation. However, the way that progressive, politicians and policies work, they basically say you do not have the right to self-defense. That's actually like Justin Trudeau, our prime minister here in Canada, has basically said that. He said, you do not have the right to self-defense. Hence why he argues that no Canadian has the right to have a gun because you're not allowed to defend yourself. So, okay, so then using that logic, what is the, how do you defend yourself, or what recourse do you have if you are under attack? Well, the only recourse that you're given is you have to call the police. And you'll hear this all the time. Yep. You've talked to people in cities, you tell them, what do you do if somebody comes into your house or if somebody confronts you on the street and you're basically in danger of assault, death, or anything like that? People always say you got to call the cops. The problem is that the very cities that are arguing that nobody has a right to carry a gun, that self-defense is a myth, are the very same places that are basically making it either impossible or totally impractical or untenable for police officers to even enforce the law. Hence, you're on your own, and so the cities are basically empowering criminals and making people making it impossible for people to defend themselves at all. Hence, what happened in the New York City subway with that guy who basically subdued that crazy lunatic who was threatening people on that subway, and he's basically being being charged right now with I think it's second-degree murder or at least manslaughter, something like that. Basically, they're telling them, by the way, you're supposed to be helpless victims, but if you even think about trying to defend yourself from dangerous, reckless criminals, we're going to throw the book at you. This is by design. And this is how they operate. And by the way, in their view, this is not a contradiction. This is not a double standard. In their view, that's the goal. The goal is to demoralize, to destabilize, and hopefully to basically create so much chaos and so much danger that people will willingly and very happily allow the government to basically put them under some kind of totalitarian rule. This is how it works. It's basically the V for Vendetta recipe. You create an emergency scenario, or basically a scenario where people are so incredibly distressed at how terrible things are that they're willing to accept.
They'll take any
that they're willing to make the ultimate sacrifice and put themselves under totalitarian control. That's the game plan, by the way. All these progressive politicians follow the same script. Hence why when you see a progressive city council and mayor take over, they just business as usual, blame the victims, empower the criminals, justify the excesses of their paramilitary organizations like the Antifa, BLM, and like the radical gender ideologues. Basically, excuse all of their excesses and demonize the people who are actually the victims. So that's the way it works. So this is, if you want more of this, you got to elect more progressive governments. That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Kissing Gonzo seems to be having a good little discussion in the chat, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think altogether here, like, I think if you look at the theme of everything we talked about, you see the justification of a terror regime, like an actual country that is legitimately evil. And we showed you how they're indoctrinating children, how they're justifying like massacres and hostage taking and all that, and they're the good guys. They're the victims in this whole thing. We saw how like even the Republicans are basically like like destroying their own cause, and we showed you how all of these like like policies like in these cities are basically completely and totally destroying the social fabric. You can see that there's basically like this is why a lot of times I like to describe wokeism, which is what a lot of these governments and people like like follow. Wokeism is basically societal cancer. It's a cancer that spreads, and if left untreated and left unopposed, it will ultimately end up destroying the society that you're in. And obviously that's their goal, because they want a socialist takeover, kind of like they had in Bolshevik in the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, or the socialist takeover of Venezuela. They want to do that everywhere. So it's all by design. None of this is accidental. These politicians, they're not smart, but they're also, they don't have to be, because they're just following a script.
No.
So
Yeah, because
all you need to know.
Propping them up.
Exactly.
Anyway,
I think that's it there, Steven.
Yep, that's pretty much all. Like, today's a shorter show, but like there wasn't a
Works.
ton of stuff that was new outside of the main stories that we've been covering. Yes,
sometimes it's good to have like a little shorter show.
Worm is saying right now, all prostitution is a form of sex slavery. Some are more like direct and obvious than others, but yes, prostitution is selling your body, and it's selling kind of the innermost part of you. So it's something that it causes harm, not just to the level of, okay, like this person has been captured and forced into this. Even those who are being prostitutes of their own free will, like, this will cause long-lasting effects to them, and they might not be able to like say that definitively in the moment.
Yeah,
but prostitution is not a zero-sum game.
I think one of the things that people don't think of is one of the problems that prostitution does is it dehumanizes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it turns like so for example, if you are, let's say for example, you're John, have sex with a prostitute, what you're doing is you don't consider that person sacred. They're not like the fact that they're a human being, that they have inherent worth, goes out the window, because they're now a commodity.
Yep.
You've turned human beings into a commodity, and so so basically the idea of human beings being sacred goes out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a like a sure recipe to create like downfall of any society.
Mm-hmm.
When you turn human beings into commodities, that it's really
this is one of the reasons why we stand so definitively about and against IVF.
Yeah, I disagree with that comment. That people, okay, so there's this idea. There's a libertarian idea that you can do whatever you want with your body, and that isn't true. Well, see that's the caveat that they always do. The harm is a major part. So, for example, if somebody like is cutting themselves, is literally like like self harming themselves and all that kind of stuff, we have a moral duty to intervene, because that person is harming themselves. The problem here is that people believe that you're basically selling your body, like selling your body for money. That's not self harm. I'm like, no, I would argue very strongly that is self harm. You're basically like you're basically degrading yourself,
Mhm.
and you're basically like dehumanizing yourself in order to either get money for yourself. But most often, you have to remember too, prostitution is not a I'm a independent girl and I just want to make a couple extra bucks. Prostitution is the most amazing way for people to exploit people.
Yep.
And this has always been the case all through human history. Prostitutes are not like free agents; they are exploited.
Mhm.
Like they're exploited, people. And whether or not somebody wants to, wants to be exploited on purpose, like purposely wants to self-exploit themselves or not, we have a moral duty to say no. Like we need to intervene. Just like if somebody is destroying themselves through drug use, I'm not going to use the libertarian argument and say like, oh, well, they have a right to basically
Yep.
kill themselves slowly. I'm like, no, we have a duty, a moral duty to intervene and to prevent this person from self-harming themselves.
Mhm.
Right? The same thing with
Well,
somebody.
especially-
If somebody's
especially if
killing themselves with
someone
anorexia, we
Yep.
should intervene. That is
Mhm.
not they can do
Yeah.
whatever they want. Like, no, if you say that, you're not actually caring about people. You're actually showing that you don't care about people.
Yeah.
That's what you're actually saying. If your sister or your best friend is slowly killing themselves through alcoholism, it's not
And you look
loving
the
to
other
say,
way. Yeah, that's not.
oh, well, they have a right to to destroy themselves completely
Mhm.
through alcoholism.
Yeah.
Like you should, like, a moral duty would be like, no, I'm gonna actually intervene. Oh, give me a break. Someone cutting themselves isn't doing harm to their body. Yeah, it's true. That means that, okay, so if it's an underlying issue, that means that there has to be some intervention, because this is self-harm, whether or not you think it's major harm or not. That's self-harm. Yeah, it's I'm sorry.
Prostitution to be a voter? That
Being a
doesn't-
voter to a favorite politician or a pastor? No, that's a misuse of the word prostitution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's to be to a favorite politician or pastor. No, that's voting is different. Voting is choosing who you
Mhm.
think is going to be the best leader. That's not prostitution.
And
sorry.
You're
It's
typically choosing.
misuse.
When you vote, most rational, decent people, especially non-progressives, will choose to vote for someone who advocates the least harm.
Mhm.
Not the most harm, the least.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I also think, sorry. Go ahead.
well, like even if someone does not experience harm in the very, very short term, does not mean that we should just be like, okay, well, like they're not experiencing it right now, so we're just going to look the other way, even though they will very likely suffer in the future. It's kind of like the idea of like, oh, well, they're drinking and driving. They're not harming anyone right now, but they have a very high likelihood of doing so in the future.
Yeah, I think like the other thing too is that, okay, so for example, let's say for example you have a family, and they're feeding their kids McDonald's and junk food and all this kind of things, and the kids just like they love it. They love getting junk food. They love drinking nothing but pop. Like you could say like, well, it's not harming them. Like, I'm like, no, but in the long term, that kid is going to have some serious health problems because they're eating nothing but McDonald's, chips, pop, everything like that for long term. Like, I think the problem with the progressive, approach, or the secular approach too, is the way that they define harm, and they always like explain harm. They always downplay like harm. They think like, okay, two people consenting to sex, that's not harmful. Okay, there's two different perspectives on that. It's harmful for society to basically to be sexually liberal, to basically everyone can have sex with anybody they want anytime, and it's totally okay. I would argue that that's actually like death to, like, it's basically like the absolute destruction of the most important foundational tenet in society, which is marriage. And we have seen what happened since the sexual revolution in the 60s, what has happened to society with marriage rates and divorces and the harm to children done over generations. It has absolutely destroyed the foundational unit of the society, which is the family. And so like we can track it. It's very easy to track. The idea, like, for example, that sexual what do you call it? Like basically giving into every sexual desire, that there's no consequences to that, is not correct. And like, one of the best places I like to look at is the abortion industry, which is benefiting like crazy from all of these people having countless sex with countless partners. Like, it's a free for all. And of course, who are the number one victims is children. So if you want to say like, oh, having open sex as much as you want with a society wide, that never causes harm. I think all of the millions of children that have been aborted over the last couple decades would disagree. So again, big topic, but we basically disagree on the word harm and whether or not something is harmful, and we can have a discussion about that. But the word harm is one of the key words that we have to like discuss about whether or not something is good or is not good for society and for the person. I would argue that prostitution is self-harm, even if the person doesn't believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Steven's kind of on the same boat, right?
Yep. Yeah. So, but we're sort of near the 2-hour mark, so we'll just kind of finish up there. So, for those who've been watching on the live stream, thank you for commenting. It was very interesting, kind of back and forth in the live chat. And for those who are watching later on our video platforms on YouTube, Bitch, and Rumble, of course, you can check out our other contents that can be viewed on those platforms. And of course, do not forget to like, follow, and to subscribe. If you're following on our text platforms, such as our website at shrewddudes.com and at Facebook, Gitter, and Twitter, then of course, follow, like, send us a message, tell us how we're doing. And, if you want to join us for open mic night, which is, I believe, in 2 weeks from now, then you are more than welcome to. Actually, 2 weeks from now will be Halloween.
Oh, nice.
So it's the Thursday before Halloween.
It's Halloween!
Next week, I believe, actually. It's the 24th. No, not the 24th, the 26th. So
26th,
next Thursday is our open mic night. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to join that, send us a message and I'll send you a link to the Discord. And we can hopefully have a live and interactive conversation and have some good back and forth and maybe have some difference of opinion and some disagreements so we can maybe see if we can reach some common ground.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, here at the Shrewd Dudes podcast, we like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd? Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. And as always, God bless.
Good night, everybody.